US stock markets that have in fact hit an all-time low. This is the lowest we've seen since 2022, with investors fearful about the economy that could be headed into a recession. And this is after President Donald Trump did not respond to comments regarding a recession, and that has really resulted in the market stumbling early this morning.
Well, the three-week stock sell-off intensified on Monday. At the closing bell here on Wall Street, the Dow Jones was down 890 points. The Nasdaq fell 4% on Monday, and the S&P 500 was down 2.69%, almost 2.7%, which is its lowest level since December of 2024. The question is, why do the stocks continue to fall, as we've seen in recent weeks, and what's ahead? Well, the first part of that answer is the talk of tariffs and the on-again, off approach to tariffs is really causing confusion and spooking some investors. For example, last week, Donald Trump implemented a 25% tariff on both Canada and Mexico. By the end of the week, many of the industries that would have been affected by that no longer were, because the Trump administration changed its policy there. Then there's talk of a recession that we've seen on Monday as well. That is because over the weekend, Donald Trump had done an interview that aired on Sunday night on Fox News Business, where he was asked about the prospect of a recession in the coming months. And this is what he had to say. He said, I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. So instead of saying, no, there's not going to be a recession, he said we are in a position of transition at the moment, which will create more economic uncertainty ahead. So there's the tariffs, there's the talk of recession, there's also the fact that unemployment has ticked up from 4 to 4.1% last week, and inflation is still not close to that 2% target that the Federal Reserve would like to see. So still some uncertainty and possibly more to come. We're hearing reports that there could be more tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to the United States as early as the middle of this week. And then we're also looking towards those reciprocal tariffs that are going to be announced in early April. Mitch McCann, NDTV, New York.
Right, Mitch McCann, thank you so much for joining us this morning with all those details regarding the US stocks. And of course, to know more on this, we have my colleague Maha joining us. Maha, take us through, from what we're seeing and what we're hearing is that this is a reaction to Donald Trump avoiding the recession question. When reporters asked him later after he made those comments as saying that we are bringing back wealth and there's a lot of changes happening. When reporters really did question him about recession, he said, who knows? And that is really what has, triggered that loss in the markets to the tune of $4 trillion US.
Absolutely. The markets have been reacting very badly since the time Donald Trump has been talking about the tariffs, especially against Canada and Mexico, considering that US has an agreement with both these countries. It had one called NAFTA, which was renegotiated during his previous tenure to CUSMA, as it's called in Canada. And now even that has been thrown away virtually because of the new tariffs that were announced by President Trump. Now, even though at the moment some of those tariffs have been paused, but the on-again, off-again tariff policy that Donald Trump has been talking about constantly is creating jitters in the market, as we can clearly see. The market's reacting badly to that, and the fall that we saw today was one of the biggest that has been seen so far. Meanwhile, amidst all this, Divya, what we are also looking at is a 25% surcharge on the electricity that is going from Canada, especially the province of Ontario, specifically going to Michigan, Minnesota, and to New York, will now have a 25% surcharge, which means that 1.5 million people in these areas will be paying more for their electricity now. Canada is saying that this is in response to the tariff threat that is constantly hanging on the heads of the Canadians and the Mexicans. Of course, Canada is only talking about itself here, and Ontario, specifically the province, is reacting to that with this 25% surcharge. So all these signals clearly not going down well, not just with the general public, but clearly with the markets there as well.
Thank you so much, Maha, for joining us from Vancouver with all those details. We also have Sakshi Bajaj with us. Sakshi, US stocks plunge as the tariff uncertainty fuels recession fears. And then, of course, comments made by Donald Trump to the tune of we're shaking things up. And this shake-up is really, having a tumbling effect as far as the markets are concerned.
Absolutely. So fear and uncertainty, really. Fear and uncertainty dragging markets. We have seen US markets in that massive sell-off. We have seen the Nasdaq tumble around 4% in close. We've seen S&P 500 and the Nasdaq tumble over 2.5% at close. We've seen the Nasdaq, the tech-heavy index from the US stock market. Nasdaq really, of course, witnessed its largest decline, largest single-day decline since 2022. We've seen, of course, Asian markets open and follow the US market sell-off. We've seen the Nikkei tumble over 2% in early trade. Now, all of this is happening. Why? Because fear and uncertainty, both experts believe, have gripped, of course, the markets. Now, for our viewers to understand, as our colleagues were reporting, fear is what? The US recession fears have emerged after US President Donald Trump, in an interview, in a question really, and in a response really to a question on US recession, has responded saying that, look, one cannot predict these things, and the US economy is in transition. So in a sense, not ruling out US recession altogether. So that really is what investors are reacting to. We can see the jitters being felt and the massive wipeout. We've seen the Nasdaq alone wipe out over 1 trillion in market value. Of course, 4 trillion wiped out since, of course, the last month's peak from US markets altogether. So that really is one key reason and one key factor why markets are reacting as intensely as they are. The other key reason, of course, as my colleagues were also reporting, is the constant tariff and trade policy uncertainty. Now, constant back and forth, retaliatory tariffs also, a full-blown trade war, as it were, being triggered by US Trump's policies. Now, what, of course, analysts and experts are making of this is, look, are they not understanding that tariffs are really a double-edged sword? Tariffs, remember, are not only going to impact global trade challenges and emerge, of course, global trade challenges will emerge from this, but this will also impact local manufacturing and consumption at large. So both these factors, why we've seen the market meltdown as intensely as we have.
Right, Sakshi, of course, Trump's on again, off again. Tariff threats against Canada, Mexico, China and others have left the US financial markets in turmoil and consumers unsure what the year might really be bringing on. And stock markets just ended their worst week since the elections that took place in November. Thank you so much for joining us with those details.